Good evening and a warm welcome to all our viewers to an illuminating session. Impact of lighting on wellness in commercial and office interiors. Our sponsor for today's session is Klite. Why the right lighting is a must-have for healthy workplaces? Office lights and workplace well-being. What is the link? Let us find out what our renowned panel has to share with us today. With immense pleasure, we welcome Mr. Praveen Thampi, Creative Director, the Ministry of Light, who is also our moderator for today's session. Ms. Sharmila Kumbhat, Director, Klite Industries. Architect Shresht Kashyap, Co-founder, KNS Architects. Architect Yatin Patel, Founder, DSP Design. Architect Rachita Khanna, Associate Director, SWBI. I hope all of us are going to have a very informative session. Let us start with a short AV of our sponsor for today, that is Klite, and thereafter Mr. Praveen Thampi will be taking the lead. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I think today we have a very indulging topic and a very indulging eminent panelist. So the topic, of course, today is about wellness in lighting for office spaces. This has been talked over in a lot of forums, I know, and all of you would have heard about a lot of presentations on human-centric lighting and stuff like that. I'm sure when we talk about wellness in office space, the first thing that comes to your mind is tunable white or circadian lighting or maybe human-centric lighting. But what we wanted to discuss today is in depth into it in terms of exactly what it all means, what are the myths. Because a lot of people keep saying, yeah, circadian lighting is a gimmick and stuff like that. So we are going to today look at what is confirmed data in terms of how lighting affects the wellness of people in an office space. So, of course, a lot of it is actually covered in the latest well standards. But interpreting the well lighting standard itself is very crucial because, I mean, if you look at all of the well guidelines, the lighting is the most critical aspect of it. And most people are not able to interpret this very well. So, first of all, before we open up the forum, what I'm going to do is make a small presentation on the technical aspects of well lighting standards. I'm going to try and explain it in simple common man's language so that you all understand, and exactly what are the known benefits of circadian lighting and stuff like that. So let's start with the well standards of lighting. So we'll look at what are the various aspects mentioned in well lighting standards. So primarily it talks about visual acuity, circadian lighting, electric light, glare control, solar control, solar glare control, low glare workstation design, color quality, surface design, automated shading and dimming controls, right to light for every occupant, daylight exposure, and daylight fenestration. So there are these many aspects of lighting that has been mentioned in the latest well standards. We have to actually dig deep a little into each of these aspects. Let's look at visual acuity, which primarily talks about the visual aspects of lighting, which is photopic lux. So it says that you need to have at least 350 lux horizontal photopic lux on the tabletop. What is more important is the fact that you need to have a ceiling illuminance, which is at least 30% of what's available on the work plane, which means you need to have about 150 to 200 lux in the ceiling when measured upside down. Vertical illuminance should be at least 50%, so that you're able to. So what happens is normally when the work plane has shifted from the horizontal to the vertical, because we're all working on a screen, why ceiling illuminance and vertical illuminance is important is because we should be able to have a fairly decent brightness balance between the screen and the surrounding. So the screen is emitting certain amount of luminances, then your surrounding luminances should balance up so that your ciliary muscles are not exerted too much. So primarily that is what this talks about, and it also says that you have to provide task lighting between 300 to 600 lux if the ambient lighting in the workstation areas are less than 300 lux. So that was the visual aspects of lighting. Now we also look at what are the circadian aspects of lighting. What exactly is the definition of circadian lighting as far as modern offices are concerned? Now we all know that as the day progresses, the natural light emitted by the sun changes in color, angle, and intensity. That's what you see here if you see how these keep varying from morning to evening. So by definition, circadian lighting in offices is a concept that electric tunable white LED lighting can be used to support the long-term human health of the occupants and improve their productivity. So it's not only the well-being, it's also improving productivity by simulating the natural daylight outside within the office space by intensity tuning, color tuning, and stimulus tuning. So there are several Symbologic, circadian, geocentric lighting management system software available, which can be used for improving productivity as well as improving the well-being. Because we use these kind of scenarios primarily both during day shift as well as during night shift. During night shift, when there is absolutely no daylight, we are all working under complete contrast to a diurnal shift person. Now, just to understand this in depth, I just put together a small detailed description on circadian lighting. So what you see here is a detailed, enlarged version of the human retina. We all know that you have rods and cones in your eyes. Rods are responsible for seeing things, and cones are responsible for seeing color. These rods and cones are actually connected to the ganglion cells, which in turn connect through the optical nerve to the medulla oblongata, and that's how you see things. That is your visual cortex. Now, in 2003, there was a discovery which showed that there were certain ganglion cells in your eyes which do not have these rods and cones connected. So what it means is, earlier nobody knew why these were not there. It was only in 2003 that it was discovered that there is a separate path which connects these ganglion cells directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or what we call as the free running biological clock in our body. So it's a 24-hour free running clock which actually keeps track of the sunlight. So that is why we are all diurnal people. We all wake up in the morning when the sun comes up, and we all go to sleep when the sun goes down. And the sun itself, from morning to evening, actually keeps changing its color temperature from morning to evening. And that is what actually controls the various secretions of this biological clock. So if you see here, how this biological clock really affects the human, our daily life. So if you see, when the sun comes up in the morning at 6, your 6:45 in the morning is when your blood pressure actually starts rising. Melatonin secretion, which is responsible for sleep, actually starts getting suppressed by 7:30. That's when you really wake up. When the melatonin is suppressed, you wake up, and when the melatonin is rising, you go to sleep. That's standard human operating procedure. Now, again, so if you see at various times of the day, there are various secretions of the brain which happens. High testosterone level happens at 9 a.m. if you wake up at 6 a.m. when the sun rises. High alertness level is at 10 a.m. That's why people say it's best to do the toughest task in the morning at 10 a.m. because that's when you are really sharp with stuff. Afternoon, you see best coordination is at about 2:30, 3:30 is when you have the fastest reaction times. Then the best time to do cardiovascular vascular exercise about 5 p.m. Then after the sun sets, slowly the blood pressure starts rising, and melatonin also starts rising, and then you go to sleep. In fact, melatonin peaks at about 4:30 in the morning. So this is typically how a diurnal person's biological clock works, and how the various secretions of the brain are done by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, depending on the color temperature of the light that is entering your eyes. Typically, what it does is, it basically can affect your mood, performance, alertness, body temperature, hormone production of the pineal gland, melatonin and serotonin, hormone production of the adrenal cortex, which is cortisol, structure of the EEG, urine production and its composition, sleep-wake pattern, and almost all body processes. This is what I was telling. The sunlight in itself varies from morning to evening in its color temperature, somewhere between 19,000 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. So it is not constant. So imagine a scenario where you design an entire office space at a fixed 4,000 Kelvin, and you are sitting under that light for continuous 12 hours. What happens? Effectively, your suprachiasmatic nucleus is not getting the signal through the light entering your eyes, telling it what kind of secretions have to happen. So these are typically how you see on the left, how the various secretions change during the day, basically depending on these color temperatures which is entering your eyes. So what happens when you don't have this happening and you are fixed at 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin? All of your secretions go for a toss. So effectively, over a long-term period, you have different kinds of seasonally affective disorders and various well-being issues that happen to the human body is primarily because we are sitting under a constant light, whereas we are actually designed to sit under a varying color temperature. So these are some of the known effects of circadian lighting in an office space during day shift as well as night shift. This is actually based on actual data collected from one of my own projects. So this is not just some jumbled up data. So here what we see is, this is based on actually a post-occupancy survey that we have done on one of our projects. So it actually says that you have increased alertness in the morning. This is during day shift. And we asked people during day shift, what are the benefits of circadian lighting in their office space? So one is increased alertness in the morning, productivity and concentration improvements, improved mood, reduced hyperactivity, reduction in errors and accidents, faster cognitive processing, reduces post-lunch lethargy, reduced number of coffee and loo breaks, improved sleep at night because they are actually, so how the melatonin starts rising after sunset is because when you're getting exposed to the sunrays during sunset, it is in the range of about 2000 to 1900 Kelvin. Automatically that triggers the secretion of melatonin, and that's how you tend to fall asleep. So actually, if you go and see sunset in a beach for about half an hour, that day for sure you're going to go to sleep by about 9 o'clock. Similarly, for night shift, when people are completely working against nature, so this is a scenario where there are much more benefits than the day shift. Here we see that there is no desynchronization of the biological clock, because usually most of the people who are working in night shift, they end up being zombies. The reason is because the biological system is completely messed up, because when they're supposed to sleep, they're actually going to work. So what a circadian lighting can do in this kind of a scenario is we actually simulate the day scenario in the night time. So we are basically tricking the brain to make it feel that they're waking up in the morning and going to office in the morning. And when they go back home, they're going to go to sleep. So effectively, what this does is we are shifting the clock of these people by 12 hours. You're making their day as night and their night as day. Effectively making them work in the same lighting conditions as a day worker. So it basically, again, of course, helps in improving alertness through the night, productivity and concentration improvements, improved mood, reduced hyperactivity. And of course, because they again follow the same pattern, when they're going back home during the daytime, they're getting better sleep. So effectively, we are completely improving the quality of life of a night shift person with this kind of circadian lighting. This is another interesting aspect of the circadian lighting, which is called as melanopic lux. Melanopic lux is actually a new parameter, which is basically your visual illumination multiplied by the melanopic ratio. This is the melanopic lux is actually what triggers the circadian system in your body. Okay, so what it says is you need at least 250 melanopic lux inside the office space so that your circadian system is working. And for various kinds of lighting system, it is seen that melanopic luxes vary. So for example, if you're doing, let us say 350 lux with LED at 4000 Kelvin, then 76% of it is getting converted into melanopic lux, which basically means if you do 350 lux, okay, so I'm not able to go back, but yeah, if you do 350 lux of LED at 4000 K, then you are able to achieve 250 melanopic lux. Another important aspect is the unified glare rating, which basically means you're not only looking at the glare from the electric light, but it is also the entire room surface. And a UGR rating of at least less than 16 is what is required for a general open office space. Then the other aspect, of course, is room surface design. What it says is your ceiling reflectance, because primarily what you're seeing in an office space is in the visual environment in an open office space is primarily the ceiling and the walls. So those have to be really well lit to get it as bright as possible in the minimum energy consumption. What it says is if you use lighter ceilings, which is white or off-white or colors like that, with a ceiling reflectance of at least 80%, then you are able to efficiently achieve your visual environment being bright in a much energy efficient manner. The other aspect, of course, is solar glare control. Specifically, it says that you have to have shades which cut off the direct glare from the sunlight and only quality light comes in. Nowadays, the trend is to, of course, use motorized blinds, which will automatically move up and down based on the sun's movement, so that the direct glare is completely cut off. The other aspect, of course, is workstation orientation and the glare coming from the surfaces. So ideally, you should be using matte surfaces so that you do not get reflected glare, and that way, and of course, preferably lighter colored surfaces than darker colored surfaces. Color quality, what it says is you need to have a color rendering index of at least 80%. And what is most important is with LEDs, you tend to have the blue component missing, which makes you look anemic in the office space. So it is important that you have the R9, which is responsible for the red component of the color rendering index, to be at least 50%. So that's what it talks about the lighting color quality. And then, of course, personalized lighting wherever possible, because every individual has got a different lighting requirement. No two persons have the same kind of preference, either in terms of the lux levels or in terms of the color temperature. So it's always preferable that wherever possible, you give personalized option even in an open office space. These are some of the various prototypes that we have developed on various projects that we have done, which successfully we have been able to do. Okay, so that's a brief about the technical aspects of wellness in an office space. What I would want now is each of the panelists to present in terms of their approach on how they look at lighting for the well-being of the office space. Yatin is going to be talking primarily on how natural daylight is being brought into the office so that you don't have to play much with the artificial lighting. But yes, over to you, Yatin.
Okay, thanks, Praveen, and thanks for that great insight into lighting in commercial and office interiors and wellness aspects of that. We at DSP do a lot of concentrated work on commercial office spaces, both architecture as well as interiors. And our approach towards design for lighting has always been to harness maximum amount of natural light within office spaces. So whilst we address all aspects of wellness, lighting plays an important part in the planning of right from architecture, that is from facades to interiors. Now, this image that you see for a facade that we are designing for one of the buildings, large IT campuses that we do, it also provides sun shading devices and also creates light elves. So again, which allows a lot of daylight penetration into deeper areas within the floor plates. Now, typically, IT buildings are designed either at 1 grade or 2 grade buildings. There are cases where they have become much thicker in size. And that's when we're forced to have light shelves that allow for additional penetration of daylight. But the endeavor in most cases is to provide less deeper floor plates, again, to enhance the daylight quality coming within each of these spaces. Here's an example of what we do when we analyze a base build. And like I mentioned, it's a 1-day grid. And we always check and see the direction of sunlight and make sure that we analyze the amount of daylight penetration within the office space and then go around to planning the interiors. So that's what typically would happen. And if you notice, the blue patch on the previous slide is where you get maximum daylight, which is where we have provided most of the workstations. So all workstations are provided where you have additional daylight coming into the space, and all enclosed spaces are in the not so greater light, naturally illuminated areas. So this is where you have the enclosed spaces which don't have as much natural daylight as the rest of the spaces, where we have got the bulk of the employees which would be seated in that. Now, what you'd also notice is that we always try to have most of these workstations perpendicular to the source of lighting, which cuts off the glare from the outside. So that really tells you where you get the maximum daylight. And in the center, you've got the partial daylight and then kind of getting reduced as you go towards the core. And like I mentioned, workstation layouts, allowing sufficient daylight penetration to promote productivity while avoiding glare. Studies have said that
Can I just ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
When you do your daylight analysis, what is the maximum reach of daylight that you get in most of these workstations? I mean, whether inside, whether it is like 8 feet, 6 feet, what's the maximum utilizable daylight that you get from natural thing through the glazing?
So we count up to a grade. One grade could vary from at most about 8 meters is what we would say would be okay daylighting. Of course, the best would be up to 12 to 14 feet, but then obviously then kind of reduces. This also is directly proportionate to the height of the glazing. So you could have glazing which is only up to 7 feet, but then that would kind of reduce the penetration. Now, when we go above 7 feet, the penetration is much more, but then you start getting glare. That's
Right.
why you would have, you would normally tend to put a light shelf, which would then bounce off that light and come through the ceiling and diffuse light through the ceiling.
Got it. Okay, please continue.
Thanks. So again, perpendicular to windows to avoid glare. And then we always say that, you know, because these are perpendicular, employees would have the flexibility of changing the direction of their monitors, and the best direction would be 20 degrees at an angle of 20 degrees from the direction of the glazing. And then, you know, the endeavor, like we do in most of our interiors, is to provide as much workstations towards the daylight, but up to 75% of workstation within 25 feet of windows is still good. Where we have larger floor plates, we try to have architectural interventions in terms of atriums and sunlight. So which also it gets in light through the center into thicker floor plates, where we tend not to put in workstations because we would like the best quality of light for workstation. We then put around social spaces around atriums. That's been very effective in quite a few projects that we've done, where we've had large atriums that have been cut out. We bring in a lot of social activity around the atriums. We build in staircases, thereby connecting visually also floor plates. Of course, where it comes to multi-tenanted spaces, it's a different ball game. But when tenants have multiple floors, that's a nice way of getting people together and also increasing the light penetration into the spaces. Here are some of the offices that we've done. This is a project for Swiss Re that we had done. This gives you an idea of some of the social areas also, which I mentioned, which were around the atrium spaces and not really getting direct sunlight into the office space. That's an example of the staircase that we did, going through the office space and connecting a few floors. Also, you will see a lot of biophilia, which gets added into spaces, again, from a wellness perspective. There's so much more that could be spoken of, and Praveen has done a great job of explaining the technicalities of it, but I thought I'll touch upon the approach from an architect's perspective on enhancing daylight into office spaces.
Well, great, Yatin. That was a great insight into how you approach and maximize daylight for the well-being inside a space. I would now like to get my inputs from Shresht. I think he plays around with light a lot. I know I've seen a lot of his projects where he plays around with light. So let's hear from you. What is your approach in terms of how the well-being inside the office space is taken care?
Yeah, thanks, Praveen. I'll just start the presentation. Okay, so this first sheet basically is summary of what Praveen you've been talking about. So when we at KNS start designing an office space specifically, lighting we know is one of the most crucial aspects for the space. the first paragraph talks about a lot of what you've spoken about the circadian rhythm and the melanopic effect on the human beings and all. So I won't touch on that. So basically, what light in office, what should it be? It should be sufficiently illuminated to a level that's comfortable for everyone. It should be a harmonious brightness distribution throughout the office. We should, as far as possible, avoid reflections from the light. Glare is something that you really need to take care of. The light color has to be perfect. And of course, it has to have an appropriate color rendering for the objects to be seen the way they should. So one thing that we really look at while designing offices and especially the lighting for it is doing it in a very human-centric kind of lighting system. What this basically does is creates a lot of benefit for the end user in terms of his own well-being, his own health, and the overall performance. So there are studies which show that this kind of lighting has actually increased the performance capacity of workers from anywhere between 18 to about 25 to 30%. So that's something that we try to do. And so lighting basically affects a whole lot of things. It affects your, it has an effect on the biological aspect, emotional aspect, as well as the visual aspect. So obviously lighting is something that is really crucial in a design. What I'm going to show is an office that we got. This office is in Fort area, Mumbai. So all you guys know that Fort area is really congested. This building was a heritage building, so you couldn't even touch the outside at all. It was very dimly lit. There was hardly any natural light coming into the building. We couldn't touch the outside, as I said earlier. The inside was divided into just floors with nothing happening into it. So what we did actually with this building was the facade, the entrance point of the building, we actually created a double volume void. What this did was had a lot of inflow of light coming into the interiors of the building. The other aspect we did was the third floor was the management floor. The terrace, we actually cut out a huge chunk and made it a skylight, So again, the entire third floor was flushed with a lot of natural light. So natural light anyway is one of the most, as Yatin said in his presentation, it's the most benefiting and the most crucial factor in any kind of office space design. The problem that we had was that the first level and the second level, there were buildings on either side. So there was no, or actually minimal amount of light that was coming in through the sides. So what we did out here was very interesting. We created a niche in front of the windows and made an artificial window in front of that. So within the window, what we did was install a light fitting that was based on the way the circadian rhythm works. So in spite of not having any natural light within that space, the office people were given an experience of the same what they would while working in a normal natural sunlight environment. So that was in fact very beneficial for the workers. We got a lot of good feedback from them, that just really helped them with all this stuff. The other aspect of lighting also was that within the same office, we use actually fixtures which enhance and actually improve the visual impact of spaces, So lighting is it is a lot about being functional, but it's also about being aesthetically good, in a space. Like this office, there are a couple of offices where you see that.
Shresht, just a minute. Can I be a little critical here?
Yeah, sure.
Can we go back to the previous slide?
Yeah, sure.
So, of course, that idea of getting that natural daylight feeling is amazing. That's a fantastic approach. But if I'm looking at this picture on the right side of the open workstation area, right? I see we look at it from the perspective of people who are sitting inside that space. The vertical illumination is great if you see that wall is very well lit up on the right side.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ceiling is fairly dark.
Yeah.
And that is your visual environment. So the same fixture, if it had an up and down component, it actually lit up the ceiling as well.
No, so actually, it has a dual thing. It has a thing that throws up like.
Yeah, but then, predominantly what a lot of people make a mistake here is, like the standards say that the reflectance of the ceiling has to be at least 80%.
Yeah.
Here, what you have used a darker color.
Yeah.
That is where the issue is.
No, so there are a lot of lights in the ceiling which are put off for this photograph. We were actually focusing on the light at the back.
Okay.
So that's the reason. But so this is a two-way light that we specially got made from one of the local vendors in Bombay, who made this light which threw light up and down.
Okay.
I know what you're saying. That's why.
So I'm just looking at it from the picture. When I'm looking at it, the visual environment from my ceiling perspective is a little dark.
No, I do that, but it was basically to highlight and focus on the slit that we have, which was the, and that was a very expensive fitting also, because so focus was on that.
All right, carry on.
Yeah. No, so the other aspect of what Yatin also spoke and Praveen you also did was that there's a lot of glare that comes into office spaces, which is quite a deterrent for the work staff. One, it creates a whole lot of lack of concentration, creates fatigue and all. So, like a couple of offices, the way we've tackled it is one office we had a whole row of green on the window. So what we did was actually cut off a lot of glare and the natural direct light coming into the worktops. So there was still light filtering into the office space, but it was slightly more smoother and more soothing. And of course, green, makes it very vibrant also for the people who are working in. Another thing that Yatin also touched on was daylight harvesting. So this is something that we're working on a project right now in which we are actually looking at, having the whole light system automated. And even in the facade, we are actually going to, so this is something that we saw in New York. New York Times building has this kind of daylight harvesting, which was fantastic. It's a very expensive technology. And luckily we got a client who's actually willing to experiment and do that with us. So even the lures are going to be automated on the facade to control the amount of sunlight that actually gets in to create the right ambient or the right illumination level within the space. And the lights also are going to be automated. So obviously the lights closer to the window will be more dimly lit than the ones as you go further, the intensity of the light will go on increasing. So there was something very interesting, and we're doing this in a project in Baroda right now. So really excited about how we explored that. The other thing that lighting for us also is that more than just being functional, it is obviously a lot about aesthetics too, because office spaces do have a lot of art. They have a lot of, you use some kind of excellent panelings, you use some kind of claddings, which obviously need to be highlighted. So with the kind of spectrum that we have right now with the light fixtures, there's so much available. So anything that you think of, any specific thing that you want to do or highlight or show, there's a fixture available for it at everywhere. So like if you see the middle image on the right, there's a painting, which is actually a rectangular painting. So the light that we use there is a light that frames the entire frame of the painting. So it's not a spot, it's not just a throw of light, it's actually a frame of light that highlights and accentuates the painting. So lighting, sometimes lighting doesn't get its due in terms of the kind of effect it creates in a space. I really think lighting is more like an unsung hero a lot of times. So lighting is something that I feel, it lets you express your design to the fullest. It just gives you that, it just makes you realize your dream in a better way. It just highlights it more. So that's a very important aspect. Other than the technical part of it, this aesthetical value of lighting is something that is also something that we really talked about and done. I think that's about it. Yeah, these are the slides that I have.
Great. So I think that's a very interesting way of how you add in light as art. In fact, actually, if you look at the SWBI LG7 standards, that also talks about lighting elements that create variation and surprise in the office space. It is part of wellness, actually.
It gives you a nice feel and a nice look around. So
correct.
It's very important.
Yes. So I mean that's very wonderfully showcased in some of your light art work, I would say. Great insights there. Now I would want Rachita to give her inputs in terms of how she approaches her projects.
So I think a lot has already been said about the technical aspects of light and the fact that it not only contributes to general illumination, but also the sculptural value and the way it contributes to art and surprises in the office. So let's take a step back and understand what is it that we are talking about in terms of wellness. So, wellness in modern offices has gained certain importance recently, and that is owing to the fact that we have certain kind of lifestyles. We have a certain burnout factor. And unless wellness is taken care of, and by wellness, we just don't mean physical, we mean social, emotional, intellectual, environmental, occupational, every aspect of it, we won't be, performing to our best and giving our best to the organization. And the part that we as practitioners of workplace design solutions can deal with includes spaces, includes air, includes what we can see, and that is where lighting really comes in, because the way we see things is what lighting is all about, and it contributes majorly to our physical and emotional wellness. So we all have heard about the human-centric lighting and the circadian rhythm and how we as humans are tuned to respond to the patterns of the sun, and we feel energized with the rising sun and ease into slumber as the night approaches. So here is an example of what we did for Kane Energy. Now this is the reception that they had, and it was a 6-floor high, flooded with light, and ample of natural light coming in. And as we understand, penetration of natural daylight in offices seems to be the most important and intrinsic part of any workplace design, right? That is probably the best and the right kind of lighting that any workplace should have. And Yatin talked a lot about how a grid depth of it is the best and the most optimum penetration, right? So, but what natural light also does is it can bathe a space into and to give you that very energized feeling, and having it right at the reception really worked well for Kane. Added to this was a sculptural light that we hung from the 6 high floor atrium, that gives a very beautiful impression during the night. So at night time, it's visible from outside through the facade, and really is visible to everyone who's passing on the highway, because this building is right on the highway and has a very high visibility point. So the penetration of natural daylight and its importance is not lost on anyone. Has always been an intrinsic part of SWBI designs, even before the lead and Terry enforced it and stepped in. So for probably the last decade, all our designs have had maximum natural daylight penetration into the workplace scenario. However, at times, the natural light is not sufficient. And to kind of supplement it, we need artificial lighting. Now, what is the right kind of artificial lighting that can complement the natural daylight that we have at work offices? Right, so there are 4 aspects of light: the quantity of light that we have, the direction that it's coming from and it's going, the color temperature, and the quality. So these 4 aspects can very suitably be encashed upon in workplace design to contribute to the wellness factor. The first being levels of illumination for visual acuity, right? The second being reduction in glare, which Shresht just talked about in his second slide. Reduction of glare, and which reduces eye fatigue and headaches, and therefore contributes to wellness. So that is where if you use diffused lighting, whether it's in the form of fixtures with baffles, or in the form of up and down lighting, that is what we can control, and we've been doing it for the past decade, as I said before. The third, which is now gaining a lot of importance, and there has been a lot of talk about it, is the biodynamics of lights, which is, as Praveen explained right at the beginning, controlling the color temperature and not having it set at a particular temperature, but varying it with the progress of the day, and wearing it with the kind of natural light that you have outside. So whether it is, with POE lighting, registering the occupancy and tuning the light accordingly, or whether it's light harvesting that Shrestha talked about, or whether it's tunability of light during the day, which Praveen talked about, all this is now gaining importance because we have come to realize that wellness is extremely crucial, and the biodynamics of light can contribute a lot to it. So the fourth aspect, however, is the personalization. Now, personalization is probably not a requisite, was not probably a requisite, but what it does is it gives the employee a choice to adjust the settings to the time of the day and the task at hand, and makes them feel empowered and valued as at their workplace. And this is one thing that contributes a lot to employee engagement, which is probably now the center of each design. So all these four elements of artificial lighting are now gaining a lot of prominence, and we have been addressing most of these in the works that we've already executed for our clients. So that's how that's another picture of one of our projects, where the first two aspects were easily achievable even before, through the many engineered solutions that lighting designers and architects had collaborated over years. So there were solutions with direct lighting, and there were solutions with indirect lighting, and both have been very successfully used in our offices. And I wish I had a few more pictures to show you how we've used the direct and indirect light at various locations across the office and across the various spectrum of clients to get the best illumination levels. However, the growing impetus in wellness and the phenomenal advances in technology are ably enabling the other two aspects of artificial lighting, which is, as I talked before, the biodynamics and the personalization, because they contribute to an employee experience, they contribute to the wellness factor. So I guess I would rest my case here, because holds opportunities for us to collaborate together with designers like Praveen and Shrestha to truly tap the impact of lighting on wellness.
Well, Rachita, that's some great insight into that. I think we have pretty much covered all of the aspects of the wellness in the space from all of the panelists. Now that we have had a lot of theory, I would want to present one project where we have fully done 100% what you would say human-centric lighting. When I say human-centric, human is the main guy. For a complete wellness of this. So this is one of the first large-scale human-centric lighting project that we did for Northern Trust Bank in 2018. All right. So I'll just quickly do this before we close, just for a quick understanding of all of the standards, how it has been implemented on a project like this. So this is the reception and the main campus areas. So this is how you see from morning to evening how the color temperature changes in the space. And these are spaces where there is no access to daylight, even though this is a floor plate similar to what Yatin showed. But again, these are the central spaces which do not have any access to daylight. So all of these are on a continuous circadian cycle. We used a Symbologic software. It's also a 24/7 facility where you have both day shift as well as night shift. We in fact run 3 programs on this project. One is a day shift program, one is an evening program, and one is a night shift program. So all of the spaces, including conference rooms and stuff like that, this is actually the boardroom where we did a full Barisol ceiling. But unlike a typical Barisol, what is very interesting on this project is that it's also divided horizontally in zones. So, for different kind of activities like a video conferencing or for a general presentation, the lighting can be dimmed in zones, as well as it can also be changed in terms of color temperature. What is also very interesting on this project is the fact that we recently did a project for Google, which is a global project, where we looked at how various skin tones of people sitting in a common conference room during a video conference is well enhanced. Usually what happens is when you have a person with a white skin and a dusky skin and a dark skin, one of the skin tones always get washed out during the video conference. So we have now done a study which very clearly shows how every color temperature can enhance each type of skin tone. That's completely different ball game that we worked on another project. Maybe another time I'll explain that in detail. But yeah, this is the training room where it's all on a circadian cycle because you don't have access to the outside space. Predominantly, if you see here, unlike the regular breakout spaces, we work with a white ceiling so that the ceiling reflectance is brighter and the space looks much more brighter. This is the workstation area itself, where we had a fully motorized blinds which were controlled with the daylight sensors, and they would automatically self-adjust depending on the sun's movement. Plus, we used a special dual optics luminaire here. What's interesting about it is, so we didn't do a standard tunable white which simply changes the color temperature just like how it does from morning to evening. What we did was, see, what you would usually see in during the day. I mean, when you're doing a task outside, you don't really see the color temperature changing on the task. The task is always, you will always feel it is between 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin. It's actually the sky that really changes. So that's what we have actually done here. We have the wings here, which actually does the tunable circadian program between 2000 to 8000 Kelvin. And there is a central laser blade optics, which actually does the horizontal illumination on the tabletop. So this does not really vary. This at the max varies between 3500 to 4500. That's all. And it's actually the entire lighting ambience that really changes from morning to evening and depending on the program during the night shift. So all of the areas, even these, again, this had a central optics, which has got a different fixed 4000K, and the wings, which is going to be changing color. So yeah, these are all various breakouts. Very colorful in terms of creating the variation and surprise elements. It's a fact file of the project. It was 100% compliant to well standards, truly human-centric. We used a very advanced lighting management system, which automatically also controls the drapes. And plus the sensors itself actually not only detects occupancy, it also detects the heat map of people occupying the space, which in turn sends a signal to the BMS with on the back end to an IoT system, also controls the HVAC system. On a standard solution, you don't get to, you either know whether, even if there is one person, the AC is blowing at full blow. But in this case, depending on the heat map, data which is fed in from the daylight sensors, it actually connects to the BMS and actually helps self-adjusting the HVAC system. All the conference rooms and enclosed spaces are also equipped with zoned circadian lighting, which can manually override whenever you want to prefer whatever is required. We achieved this at lighting power density of 0.6 watt per square feet, which is installed lighting power density, and the average running load is as low as 0.45 because most of the time they are dimmed down because of the natural availability of daylight. We're still doing the post-occupancy evaluation because while it was being done, we went into lockdown, but immediately after lockdown, we're going to get a full report in terms of the well-being from the staff themselves. And that would be a great data in terms of how, we can prove that this has really worked well. All right, so we have had some great insights from all of the architects and designers on the panel now in terms of how the approach is. We would now like to hear from Sharmila as a manufacturer. What is her take on circadian lighting? What are the kind of new products that you have developed to meet these standards and stuff like that? Over to you, Sharmila.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to thank Praveen for moderating this event and really, really amazing insights on your WELL's standards. Also architects, Yatin ji, Shresht ji, and Rachita. It's amazing body of work. Glad to be a part of this panel. It's actually very humbling to see the body of work that you guys have done. It's pretty amazing. Just a little bit of an intro about Klite. Klite is a four-decade-old organization, and we predominantly started doing railways. So a lot of railway coaches. So if you're talking about indoor spaces and lighting for that, so a lot of metros and railway coaches predominantly have Klite fixtures. So we're more on technical lighting. Subsequently, as an industry, we moved on to focusing on landscape lighting and urban city planning. It's just been about 3 or 4 years as a manufacturer that we ventured into indoor spaces and office lighting. Whether you're talking about commercial spaces, whether you're talking about office interiors or generic spaces for people to gather and work off of. So as a manufacturer, I think first thing that the whole lighting industry has taken a paradigm shift from electrical to electronics. So from instead of working with conventional lamps like CFLs and things like that, which was ruling the lighting industry not a decade ago, now to LED has given a lot more flexibility to designers to create scenes. And that's when this whole scene of human-centric lighting or people-centric lighting has come. Lighting also has become a lot more intelligent as such, where you could build in controls and systems and operate. So you're talking about lighting management systems and things of that nature, which Praveen has so beautifully described in his projects. As manufacturers, we find that it is a moving target that we work with, because when we are talking to chip manufacturers and designers, which is the core light source that we are talking about, the increased efficiency is very, very high. So at labs, we are testing about 200 lumens per watt and 250 lumens per watt, whereas just 2 years back, it was like 60, 70 lumens per watt, which is on affordable commercial spectrum, not on super high-end spectrum. So it is a constant endeavor of manufacturers like us to ensure that on the office lighting spectrum, like we create, glare control, diffused lighting, a more uniform lighting across the spectrum. We are very firm believers on quantitative lighting over the overall experience that a user feels in the space. Of course, Praveen has clearly mentioned, and so did Patelji had mentioned about the CRI and CCT of the light source itself, which is going to determine the quality that we feel in the lighting. But as a manufacturer, I just like to close up stating that it is something that is very, very critical, that we have inputs from designers as well as architects from the fraternity to help us, design products that you need. And we could probably closely work with you to provide solutions, especially when you're talking about direct, indirect lighting, vertical illuminance, and things of that nature. Another thing as a manufacturer that we at Klite emphasize on is on efficiency of a product, the product quality that we deliver so that it has a longer shelf life with lesser maintenance. So your ROI on the life of the product is much better. The identity that it can create in any building, especially when you're talking about commercial spaces from the exteriors to the interiors, it actually becomes a brand of the building or the brand of the organization itself. The service life of the product and the availability to maintain the equipment through the life of the product, reliability of the product, and the quality of life. So we are working on all of these factors to create a certain set of fixtures that is probably versatile to fit into multiple applications. And as far as office design is concerned, I think quality of light definitely is a key role, if not the main two key factors, apart from air quality, that improves efficiency and productivity of the people occupying the spaces. So thank you for sharing your time and your ears to what I had to say. And that's about it from my end, Praveen.
Well, Sharmila, that was short and sweet. But yeah, it is good to know that we have some good Indian manufacturers working on newer technologies. And I know you're doing a lot of projects outside of India more than within India. And that's really making the path forward towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, I guess.
if
With a
if I
lot of,
may if I may just add one point, Praveen, what was the reason for us doing that is that as a manufacturer, when I moved back to India, it was a little of a challenge to deal with the market here because it was more China. Now that we are seeing people, designers starting to support Indian manufacturers, and if we can get, a lot of the Indian manufacturers buckled up and have a supply chain, I think we really have a great future in the industry.
great. I think with that, I think we have covered most of the aspects as far as this is more like a masterclass we have had with all of the inputs. Let's have quick closing comments from all of you before we wind up. Yatin, your take on it first.
Yeah, I think the whole session has been great. One on Sharmila's session and talk about the ROI of fixtures and lighting. I think it's with the way we are going with technology. Technology has really come to the forefront post this pandemic that we've had. And I know that all manufacturers and designers have been working with technology and working towards enhancing technology and integrating it into design. But this event has just added as is become the catalyst to that. And what we will see, and as a manufacturer, I'm sure you are already thinking about it, is you make them even more intelligent, all your fixtures, and start talking as system to each other. So talking to air conditioning system, checking on the air quality, occupancy sensors, and things like that. I think from a ROI perspective, it will become a no-brainer because there will be huge value of savings, which will then get translated into projects when you have all of these functions coming in, and most importantly, when you do data analytics for it, and then see the results, and then make post analytic reflections on that. I think technology integrated into systems, into design, is going to wipe out that whole terminology called RO. It's not. It's going to be most technologically.
All right. Shresht, your closing comments?
No, it's the same thing. I think what Yatin is saying is perfect because I'll again give that example when I was talking about how New York Times building has actually been designed. So there was a study done. We, in fact, were taken around the entire building campus. And the study done there was because of what Yatin was saying, the combination of technology with the kind of systems that we're using, it ended up saving about almost 75 to 80% of power consumption in that entire building. So you can imagine the kind of return on investment that you have of whatever investment you do for this kind of technology. So that is something that is going to be really big. And Sharmila, hats off to you. Make in India is really rocking now, and we have to, so this is the opportunity that all you guys should really, put the pedal on the foot on the accelerator and just zoom, because this is a great opportunity for us to actually do something within the country itself. And in fact, we are working on the project I was talking about Baroda. We are actually working with quite a few localized consultants and vendors. So it's really exciting, So that's going to be great. Really looking forward to it.
Great. Yeah. Rachita, your closing comments?
So I think a lot has already been said. I mean, I wonder what I'm left to say about. But yes, I think it's good that we're recognizing life, which we see, which helps us see things, and so that's it kind of creates the vision for us as an important part of wellness because it contributes at a very subliminal level And the fact that we are now recognizing it so much more, I think it really raises the unsung hero, as Shrishta called it. So I hope that this impact is studied and undertaken, and with collaborative efforts from lighting designers like Sharmila and lighting consultants like Praveen, we can put together some absolutely wonderful experiences in lighting.
Great. I think this was really a very enlightening session. I think everybody has really, enlightened each other as well on various aspects of the wellness in office space lighting.
About again. All right. Personally, this has been really educational, and for me, it's a matter of pride to be a part of this very intellectual forum. Quite honestly, I'm from a design background, but to have professionals working on it all the time and share your body of work has been great. I could not agree more with Shresht ji and all of you, Patel ji, about the fact that IoT and building intelligence into your products is the next wave. Just from the technology aspect, I'd like to just share one input is that now with the COVID come in, I think everyone is talking about wellness and sanitizing and safety in the environment. And I'm sure, Praveen, you must have heard about UV lighting and Nichia and all the chip manufacturer coming out with those. So as manufacturers, we are constantly juggling a lot of things, trying to figure out what is the next new wave that is coming across. But it's really encouraging to see Shresht ji and Yatin ji and Rachita ji telling us that, they're looking for this Go India movement, and we are all on to it to make it in India. And we look forward, to building up and making it not just a made in India product, but making local and going global. And that's what Praveen was saying, that we are already having footprints in about 7 countries, and we look forward to growing that market. But thank you for your continued support. That's it, Praveen. Over to you.
Great. I think it's been a wonderful session. Thank you all for your amazing inputs. And I hope everyone has really enjoyed. And any questions, we're always welcome to reply back to you. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.